Perfect.
All
Great.
right.
I'll now formally welcome everyone to this mismatch session. Today, we are going to talk about how credit in Bharat is growing in India and how RocketPay is solving for that credit uptake in Bharat. So today, our host is Sudeep. So Sudeep is CTO at Tata Digital, and he's managing the fintech part. Before Tata Digital, he has also worked at PayU and I think Lending Card. So he's one person who understands both the finance and tech part of fintech. So he's probably the best person to talk to the RocketPay team today. Coming to Sudeep, thanks a lot for doing this. Welcome to Mismatch session. We're looking forward to the session. Coming to the guests for today, Rishav and Ishan. These are both the guys are founders of RocketPay, and both of them were ex Khata Book as well. In fact, before I started recording, Rishav mentioned that Ishan was one of the first employees at Khata Book. So he's seen all the 0 to 1 and 1 to 10, 1 to 100 kind of a journey at Khata Book. So he understands a lot about the entire fintech space. Also, when I was speaking to a bunch of folks to understand what Rocket Pay is and how the team is, I think the common feedback that I got from everyone was that this is probably the best team to build for Bharat. So I'm extremely excited about today's session, and I'm looking forward to all the insights that you guys have to share with us on how Bharat and people in rural areas are taking credit and how they're managing the entire collection process. So over to you guys. Again, Rishav and Ishan, thanks a lot for doing this. We are looking forward to a lot of insights today.
Sure. Thanks a
Definitely.
lot, Vishal, for that introduction.
Yes.
And before I
Right.
hand it over to you guys, I'll just pause my video so that the focus stays on you guys, and you guys can continue with the chat.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Over
much.
to you.
Welcome everyone to this mismatch session with the founders of RocketPay. Fintech is growing and we are at the cusp of a different kind of exponential growth in Bharat. We have this unique opportunity in India where the industry is undergoing a massive change. Players who want to make a difference in this fintech ecosystem are coming up with unique products. It's already gotten to a point where money is moving like messages in a market like India. Today, we are delving into the innovative world of fintech with the founder of a pioneering startup that's reshaping how retailers engage shoppers in the payments and lending space. So let's get started. Morning, Rishav and Ishan. It's a pleasure to have you here. Can you, give us a quick intro and share your journey before starting RocketPay and how your past experience has shaped the vision for this venture?
Correct. So I'll quickly start, guys. My name is Rishav. I'm a graduate of Calcutta University, 16 passed out. Post my grads, took up a corporate job at EY. Did that for a month, realized that I need to go somewhere and explore more before moving and settling down into a job. So that's how I started up a cloud kitchen model, just like Fresh Menu back in the days. Didn't knew anything about business back then. Ran that business for almost 2 years, realized that I need to go and learn somewhere before I do something of my own. So that's how I came to Bombay for the first time and met Arpit, my current co-founder. He's from IT Bombay. He was running a startup called Nod, which was kind of a fusion of LinkedIn.com and Meetup.com, where we had different communities based on interest areas where like-minded people used to network with each other. So that 4 years of running RocketPay with Arpit was the kind of phase where I learned almost everything from product management to sales to interacting with people, how the tech world looks like, and basically my 0 to 1 of life was been done in that 4 years of Nod. Post Nod, so Nod was actually hired by Khata Book. So we 5 of us was there, and so 4 of them joined Khata Book. I decided not to join Khata Book. I started something called Local Dukan. So the current Dukan, Bikai.pay that you see, it was much before that. Thought was to build up a horizontal SaaS for fashion as a category to re-engage with their customer base. So my family business goes back into textile trading. So I had always seen my dad taking orders over WhatsApp and realized that WhatsApp being a conversational tool and not a order management tool, there could be a different workflow automation that can be built on top of it. So did that for almost 20 months. COVID happened, had to pivot to Kirana stores. The use case, the retention activation numbers was not there. The major reason being in India, nobody uses inventory management software. So if you even look at 100 square feet of shop, which has 500 SKU, so nobody has inventory management. So how do you build up the catalog at the first place was the major challenge. Post that moved to Khata Book. So at Khata Book, I was handling their lending piece. So basically, they had acquired a company called Biz Analyst, which was nothing but tallies data they were showing on the mobile device to the merchants. And my problem statement there was how to introduce lending for the larger cohort of business, typically doing 3.5 crore rupees every year. Did the entire primary research, then doubled down on supply chain financing and was almost doing 20-25 crore rupees of monthly disbursal. Was the point that I left the company and started up RocketPay. Yeah, Ishan.
Hello, folks. My name is my name is Ishan. So I graduated out of IIT Bombay in 2019, and right out of the college, I had met the founders of Khatabook, and I ended up joining them. So this was back when the founders were just 4 people working out of an apartment. I joined Khatabook at a point where it had 1 million downloads, and I stayed with Khatabook till the point they had 10 million monthly transacting users. So everything from product building to team building to like design and monetization, sort of the entire journey of Khatabook, I've been a part of. By the time I had left, I would argue that almost 70 to 80% of products within Khatabook had direct or indirect influence by me. I had also played a key role in acquisition of Biz Analyst as well. So towards the end of my career at Khatabook, I was handling their payments piece as well as their monetization piece. Two things which sort of struck out to me was that for monetization, we wanted to identify what is the largest problems that Indian merchants are having, right? The entire user base of Khatabook is having. And we discovered that these merchants are recording credit worth almost 15 to $20 billion monthly on Khatabook app, and they want to collect this money back, but then they have a very, very hard time in getting their money back, right? So SMS reminders, WhatsApp reminders, these were some of the most popular features of Khatabook. So along the same lines, we had built out this tool called IVR call reminders. Now, what that did was that it gave the merchant an ability to select their customers and send them an automated call asking them to pay back. This was a paid feature for which we were charging 250 rupees per month. We were able to garner almost 50-60,000 paid users within first couple of months of launch. But then the product failed because the renewals were not very strong, right? And when we dig deeper into that, we realized that the value proposition had struck a chord with the users, but then the feature itself had not been very effective in terms of getting the money back, right? So that is where it struck us that, okay, can we build a different solution? At the same time, we were also exploring UPI AutoPay to sell this IVR call as a subscription. And it occurred to us that how we want to collect money on a future date from the merchant essentially wants to do the same thing with his customers. But then there is no consumer play out there which is providing Indian merchants with UPI AutoPay or Nash sort of payment instruments. And that is where the idea of RocketPay sort of started for us. And then we got out of Khatabook and started our own journey. So yeah.
Very inspiring to hear that journey. Given your experience in this industry, can you share some unique insights or surprising findings about payments and credit systems that others may not know?
So one of the I think Ishan would be able to add more to this, but couple of things was eye opener was there is an informal EMI system that has been going around inside the country. So if there is a large ticket size item, so let's take an example of mobile as a category. So one of the very surprising thing was even the customer does not have a credit card, a third party lender is not financing the guy, but shopkeepers are running the entire running their own EMI sort of things where they are providing EMIs. They are selling things on EMI. So that was one of the very surprising thing, because once for us, we know that credit has been disbursed inside the market at a very large scale, but giving out EMIs to customers where they can pay you in monthly or weekly installments. So that was one of the very surprising fact that we came across. Ishan, I think Ishan can add.
Yeah, sure. So couple of things, right? So I'm sure like within fintech, we have all heard about how there is a 300, 400 billion credit gap in the market, right? Sort of everybody in the fintech talks about it. Another way to sort of like how we look at it is that, see, that gap is definitely there. But then if such a large gap exists in the market, then there has to be a solution which fulfills it, right? And by the time that we have spent in Khata Book and in RocketPay as well, what we have realized is that merchants are taking care of each other, right? So this credit gap of 300, 400 billion, it is being filled by the merchants who are extending credit amongst themselves within the supply chain. So that is one finding. Second finding is that in terms of deferred payment, the entire landscape or the entire use case of deferred payments, when you look at it, right, there are a lot of gaps. So first thing is let's look at affordability versus convenience. So on one end, you have, let's say, a long tail of retail merchants like Kirana shops where they tend to give out credit to their consumers because consumers don't want to pay daily. I don't want to pay 100 rupees, 200 rupees every day to my shopkeeper for my daily groceries, right? So that is where credit is extended. That is not a very strong use case for RocketPay as of now. Where we fit in very, very strongly is the area where the merchant is solving for the customer.
Hello.
The customer does not have money on him to pay right now. And this is where the merchant will extend credit to him, set up a EMI using RocketPay, and then collect that money in installment. So this is the B2C part. Then there is the B2B part. In B2B, where there is a wholesaler or a distributor who's doing recurring transactions with a retailer, there is a 15-day credit cycle, 13-day credit cycle, and all of this is just essentially working on the word of mouth. There is no sort of payment instrument which is sorting it out. So that is one place where it fits. Then your service industries where there is, let's say, a school which wants to collect monthly fees from its students, a coaching, a gym. Over here also there are deferred payments happening, but then there is no sort of solution consumer play out this. Then the final part of this, where it all sort of culminates to, is that as per NPCI statistics, around $800 billion worth of check payments happened in the financial year 22. Right. These 800 billion, if you look at who are the biggest users of checks, right, that would be businesses. And what businesses tend to do is they tend to give out post-dated checks to each other, right? Because that is the only payment instrument via which I can set a future obligation on someone. So that post-dated check, that entire volume, which as per our estimate is at least 450, $500 billion, which is moving through the post-dated checks. RocketPay is a company which has a chance to digitize all of that. Same thing happened in the US as well. In US in 2003, around 81% of B2B payments used to happen via checks. And now if you look at the current statistics, from 80%, that number has gone down to 30%, and that replacement was done by ACH, which is their equivalent of Nash. I think there is a sort of question, yeah.
So, yeah. So,
And I would suggest you carry on with your thoughts.
Yeah.
If you have questions, we'll take it towards the end of the session.
okay, sounds good.
Sure, sure. So essentially, what we are arguing is that if you look at like sort of payment gateways on like every sort of payment solution, even UPI for that matter, all they have solved for right now is real-time payments. Wherein India is a trust economy where a lot of deferred payments and a lot of business use cases around deferred payments are built out, and there is no sort of payment solution or a consumer play which is targeting that area. And that is where RocketPay comes in. So yeah, I would say those would be a couple of insights.
Sure. Those are some interesting insights. In fact, there were questions from the community on different aspects of credit underwriting, BNPL payments. So in simple,
Sure.
non-technical terms, can you explain the problem that RocketPay is solving for merchants and consumers in India?
Correct.
Is the
Sure.
core problem being solved in credit, in underwriting, in BNPL, or in payments?
Sure. So I'll answer. Yeah. So there are two parts to this. So first part is right now, the merchant's existing behavior is to extend credit out to his customers or the counterparty in the supply chain. Now this here, there is no third party which is giving any sort of lending. There is no financing happening. It's just between two people. So it's outstanding receivable is what we call it, like in accounting terms, collection of outstanding receivables. So there is no payment instrument for that. That is what RocketPay is currently building, right? What this leads to is that by the very design of the product, we end up attracting merchants where there are fewer third party options or no third party options at all available, right? So tomorrow, all this gap which is there, where there is no third party lender present, at that point, at point of sale, RocketPay is present. So RocketPay then becomes a prime company to start a lending business from there. As of now, we are only solving for deferred payment use case. In future, we'll move towards lending.
So like Ishan mentioned, just to touch upon it, I think there were a couple of questions there as well. So we are not into the business of underwriting any risk on our own books. What we do essentially is we just help merchants to collect their accounting outstanding receivables from the market using the autopay and NAS instruments, and by which tomorrow that there is a data layer that is what we are building, where we supposedly, just to give you a example, suppose Ishan has been transacting on the system for the last 6 months. So I know the quality of repayment history that Ishan has. I know the quality of customers that he brings to the platform. Say like another 6 months, Ishan was to collect another 6 lakh rupees. So can I say I can underwrite that risk at T+1 and settle some amount of that money so that I can free up his cash flow? So that is how we are looking at lending. Also, the data layers being built in terms of all this transaction that is happening on the platform is in general a credit in nature. So there is a credit score that is going to be assigned to all this transaction that we are doing at RocketPay.
All right, all right. That gives more clarity. What personal experiences or motivations drive your commitment towards RocketPay and the mission?
So
How do your personal values align with the goals and strategies of the company?
Sure. I'll take this. It is a bit personal. Well, I come from a family business background, and so my family business is into textile, so distribution only. So my father used to spend, not currently, but he used to spend almost 6 days in a week to travel around places adjacent to my hometown just to collect money and just to reconcile the orders. So when I now look at the instrument and what I do over here at RocketPay, it gives me immense. It makes me think that this work entirely could be automated. Take it. This is not something that somebody needs to work on. The quality of work can be increased much more efficiently in terms of people going for manual collections, spending a lot of time just to collect money from the market. All these things is redundant in our opinion at RocketPay. This can be automated completely. And that's one of the personal motivation I have when I look at that people don't need to go and run away for money every day. One of the very anecdotal thing I like to mention over here is there was once my dad was carrying 10 lakh rupees while collecting money, and it was entire money was taken away. Now he was into trauma for a very long time. So again, matlab, when I look at the current payments instrument that we are building, it gives me immense energy to build this day in day out, so that people don't have to worry about money or going for collections, and can do other things in their life while collection is something that can be taken care by a company like RocketPay.
All right.
I'd also like to add just one thing. So there is this one interesting fact. So if you look at like what is the first thing that humans wrote, right? So it is a clay tablet in Mesopotamia where it is a record of a person giving a bag of rice to someone on credit, right? So it's a behavior which has been like going on since then, and it has changed like a lot of forms and shapes and the way in which the workflow works. But then it gives me also a lot of pleasure that like RocketPay is then the latest stack of innovation on that behavior which has been continuing for so long. Like the first thing literally humans thought to wrote was a credit note. So yeah.
Yep, that's true. So getting into the product a little bit, how does RocketPay address the specific pain points of merchants in tier 2 and tier 3 cities? And how do you engage with the local community and retailers to
Correct.
understand and meet their needs effectively on an ongoing basis?
Correct. So, Sudeep, Ishan, I'll just add couple of points and you can take it over from that. So, firstly, when someone extends out credit, supposedly I am extending out credit to anybody, there is no way to gauge the intent that I am going to get my money back from that person. There is absolutely no mechanism. It is purely verbal in nature, saying कि मैं दे दूंगा, ठीक है, 30 दिन बाद दे दूंगा, 60 days बाद दे दूंगा, it is all दे दूंगा. So now what happens is, first layer, what RocketPay brings to the life of a merchant is कि I am giving you once a mandate or a auto pay is set up on the counterparty. The intent to repay back that money is on the first day is something that is the merchant is able to gauge कि मेरा पैसा आ जाएगा, ठीक है, कब आएगा उसका डेट भी फाइनल हो गया है, उसने अपने एक मेरे को डिजिटल पीडीसी भी दे दिया है. So before the money comes, okay, I am able to gauge the intent to repay back that money. So that is the first major pain problem of the merchant that is there. On the second layer, that what we see is ki what happens is typically a merchant spends almost in a almost more than 100 hours to collect that money. Okay, he has to send multiple reminders, he has to send multiple people, manually go and collect all that money. So currently what is happening is, currently at RocketPay our success rate hovers around 65 to 70%. So almost today, if a merchant is setting up 100 transaction with us, 70% of the transactions are going through. So he does not have to do 70% of the work anymore. For the 30% of the transaction also, we are currently working with, we are trying to come up with something called partial collections as well, wherein whatever money is there in the bank account, can we deduct that money? So such kind of a feature will enable more success rate in terms of the kind of collection that we are doing. And how we engage with the local community is key. So just to give you a couple of things. So the entire team, we have been working with MSME since the last 4 or 5 years of our career. So collectively, we have spoken with more than 10,000 merchants so far in our respective journey. Now, what happens is, so our understanding of how the merchant behaves is something that we are pretty well versed now. There are new insights and new learning that obviously comes along the way, but few things are very similar in nature in terms of their behavioral aspect. Now, when we got out in the market, we knew that we are into the category creation business. So this is something that is a new kind of a product that is there in the market. We need very high intent users to use our product. So we started acquiring user via Facebook, Google, and YouTube. So pure and pure, we used to see ads, people used to come into the funnel and try to use the product. So that is how we started engaging with them. And at a very personal level, so one of the things that we realized very early on was that we are into the business of collecting money on behalf of people. So there is a trust element that is obviously attached to it. So none of the payments company in India provide a real-time support system. Currently, we give you a real-time support system to engage with our merchants, so that when even their 5 rupees is stuck with us, they know where it is stuck, when is the money going to come back. In terms of a team engagement, so on a daily and weekly basis, we speak to the product team on a weekly basis, speak to the merchant, and we gather feedback. We go on to the ground as well, and gather a lot of feedback in terms of what is the problem, how we can solve the existing of the problem that is there. Just to give you insights over this, so the first product that we had launched was called Rocket Payments, where a merchant could set up a Nash and auto pay on their counterparties. Now, using the insights that we got, so people demanded for a CIBIL score also. They wanted to see the credit worthiness of the counterparty. The second product that then we released was called Rocket Score, wherein through account aggregator, we are fetching the asset health report of the counterparty and showing you the credit worthiness exactly in terms. There was it was all social and mental model to extend out credit कि मैं आपको जानता हूँ तो मैं आपको उधार दे रहा हूँ. But now what has happened is he can go ahead and take much more informed decision in terms of how much to lend, whom to lend, and when to collect this money up. So such kind of products that we have released has come from our learnings in terms of our engagement with the community, with the with the merchant network that we have built so far.
Sure, sure. You mentioned about trust and also the fact that right now you're looking at collection of outstanding receivables. Eventually, you once there's a data layer to understand the quality of repayment, then you start looking at underwriting, lending, and all of the other areas. But when it comes to adoption of new technology, and I think this is one of the questions that the forum had asked. There are always concerns around trust, especially among tier 2, tier 3 retailers. How does RocketPay build that trust with SMEs to accept and adopt technology solutions being built?
I'll just give you one anecdotal thing. In terms of building a trust, firstly, we were very lucky in terms of the problem that we are trying to cater to. If you go and stand in the middle of the market and scream कि मैं आपका उधार, अगर आप उधार में काम करते हो तो मैं आपको उधार में पैसा लाके दे दूंगा timely. If you just pick up a plug board and stand in the market, you will attract the crowd. ठीक है, मतलब no doubt you're not going to attract the crowd. It's such a pain problem for a merchant that सबका पैसा कहीं ना कहीं अटका हुआ है, टाइमली पैसा आता नहीं है, and which has several consequences to it. So one of the things was कि we always got a lot of top funnel, मतलब top funnel was never a problem for us in terms of trying to attract the kind of merchant that we wanted. Second layer was second thing was मतलब so one thing we realized that in real-time payments, what happens now, the feedback loop is completed instantly. I have sent money from here and the person receiving that money gets it or doesn't get it. But for us, what happens is typically the user journey hovers around 3 to 4 months, that the money will come on a future date. You have to trust me for that, that I am going to collect money on behalf of you. So what we did was, so there were constantly we support and us also, initially what we used to do is in all the screens, product screens that was there was a call us button, help us, call us button was there, and it was all of us, Ishan, my number, Arpit's number, all the founders number were there, the team's number were there, and in case you are having any sort of problem, you just click on that call us button, and one of us will receive that call and try to resolve your query in real time. So that is how we got started in terms of building up the trust layer. Ki supposedly if you are able to solve the query of the person who is there in front of you, that solves for trust. Again, on the initial date, people used to ask us कि आपकी company कहाँ से है, ठीक है, आप अपना GST certificate दो, आप registration certificate दो. So we did all of that thing also. We used to personally cater to all those kind of queries as well. Then one of the major learning that I think Ishan will be able to speak more on that was on the monetization layer. So one of the things which MSME really appreciate is कि once you start selling anything for free, they think there is some catch to it. कि या तो मेरा पैसा चला जाएगा या ये मेरा डेटा दे रहे हैं या they have some kind of a notion around it कि फ्री में कुछ नहीं होता है, there is a value attached to it, so आप चार्ज करो, ठीक है, आप कम चार्ज करो, आप चार्ज करो. So there was one of the learnings that we had during the early days was कि people used to tell us कि सर आप लोग कैसे पैसा बनाते हो, तो हम बोलेंगे अभी नहीं बनाते, we'll start charging you. Now they came and told us कि सर हम आपसे 10 लाख 15 लाख रुपए ट्रांजैक्ट नहीं करते हैं कि कल को दिन कंपनी बंद हो गई तो मेरा पैसा का क्या होगा. So now just the psychological aspect to things ki where you have to charge people so that they start seeing value inside the product. They understand that if I am using something, if my business is worked on something, then your business also should run on top of it. Like Ishan mentioned, ki merchant is taking care of the merchant. So for a merchant who is using RocketPay also, for them, they look at us in similar manner that we are also a merchant in some way or the other. So that was some of the core learnings that we had, that we tried implementing on the trust layers. Second thing that we did was real-time settlements. So in terms of people have a very hard time in terms of when the money is going to be deducted, when the money is going to come to me, कितना पैसा कटा, कितना पैसा आया, कट गया मगर आया नहीं सर मेरे पास. So all those queries was again a trust layer. See, in real time, if the money is deducted from you, Okay, in real time it has to be settled. So that also brings a kind of a trust element to this entire puzzle, wherein they are seeing that transaction हो रहा है, transaction मेरे पास आ जा रहा है. So small bits we started again doing there as well. So that also added to the trust layer. Second thing was we have started assigning distributors of our product in the market. So what we have started doing is so we understood one thing is direct selling. So direct selling is something that you can go ahead and do, but again the tat of onboarding a merchant will be much more higher. When you go through a distributor network, that distributor knows the merchant. Okay, you want to do anything with that merchant will be open to exploring and doing with you, just because you come via the distributor network. So we have started assigning distributors of our product as we speak today. We have almost 190 distributors across India that we have assigned. So that is another mechanism that through which we are building trust, wherein a merchant knows that a distributor is involved. मेरा पैसा का कुछ होगा नहीं. My money is safe. This company is safe. There are trust markers that we have built across the product, which also ensures that that the company has been working for more than 2 years, and the transaction
So
has happened and nobody has lost money. Yeah, Ishan.
yeah, and I'd just like to add one thing. So it's almost been a year. So I think there are a couple of questions I think which I'll answer right now because it will add more context to the entire conversation we are having. So first thing is that how do you guys make money, right? So we make money on commissions. So on the settled amount, the amount of money that we settle, we are currently charging 0.5%. This we are planning to increase to 1 to 1.5% as well. So the monetization is still in very early stages, I would say. But where it comes from is that during our initial days, when we were speaking to merchants around like RocketPay and the entire proposition, what they compared RocketPay against, or what they are anchoring the product against, is basically MDR charges, which are there in credit cards as well. How there are like 1.5% MDR charges on the card machine when you swipe on a POS. Similar to that, there will be some sort of MDR charges with this as well. So that is one strategy. We are also exploring a subscription based pack, but that is still in very early stages. The current traction status is, so we have around so we have till date acquired around 10,000 merchants in the entire sort of journey that we have done so far, who have transacted at least once with us. Out of this, there is a 22% M12 retention. So 2,200 out of those 10,000 merchants are coming in the 12th month and collecting some money. So there is very strong sort of retention from a product point of view. And this I'm talking from the first transaction. So very strong retention over there. The number of unique end customers would be around 33,000. So these 10,000 merchants have collectively set up mandates on 33,000 customers. And monthly collection right now we are doing around 2 crore. And this, I think, 3-4 months back was 1 crore. So there is at least 30% growth, 20 to 30% month on month growth, which is happening on the collections piece as well. So yeah, that is how we are sort of working, and that is how the traction has been so far. And in terms of trust part, right? So basically, see, the product itself has natural retention within itself, right? So let's say when a merchant comes and he's setting up a mandate, on average, a mandate length is around 3 to 4 months. So if I'm transacting today, that means I'm going to be collecting money for the next 3-4 months. That means that I'm going to be opening the RocketPay app for the next 3-4 months, right? So there is natural retention within the product. Once, so think of like the last time when you had to collect money from someone, you had to, let's say, call them, you had to remind them this person was also good, they paid back, right? It was a one-time effort. On average, within 4-5 months, a merchant ends up collecting like some 20-30 installments, right? Which then eventually goes up to 50-60 installments within a month, right? So once that happens, then this merchant is not going anywhere. His entire business is sort of like, stuck there, and there is a lot of sort of delta which has now come from his previous methods. And this merchant will not go to the old way of collecting money. He will stick to RocketPay. So that is how the product itself by design builds trust amongst the users. Within the first month, a merchant typically collects around 2,000 rupees. By the third month, this guy is already collecting 15-20,000 rupees per month, right? So that is how that journey sort of scales up.
And Malab,
Sure.
just to add to this, Sudeep, one more thing. So typically, almost 70 to 80% of the user base, they transact with 5 to 50 rupees of for the first transaction. So typically, what they do कि वो खुद पे ही एक mandate लगाते हैं. And once that money comes to them is the time they see the entire user journey कि पैसा कटा, पैसा आया, कैसे आ रहा है, कब आ रहा है, and all that thing मतलब is solved in terms of the product journey that we have built. And second transaction onwards is he starts using it on his customers.
Yeah, and I'll just show one thing. So, is my screen visible to everyone?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is just a Slack channel where we get to see like all the mandates which are created by our users, and I just want to take you through them so that you can further understand the entire use case and like what are the typical transaction sizes and such things. So the merchant name is Apu Das. He has created a mandate on Dilip Das worth 3,880. This must be a smartwatch. This is a mandate worth 11,000, which is clearly for a mobile phone. This is his eighth mandate. Then there is this guy. He has given a personal loan EMI worth 10,000 rupees for 10 months, and then this must be the single installment status. So somebody had asked, like, do these merchants charge interest? So yes, they do charge interest. So on 10,000, they're charging interest worth 1,200, so 12%. He has created 54 mandates so far. And this is again like this would be a merchant for manufacturing category where some hardware things are being sold, right? So 300 into 3 tubes. So this sort of these are the type of, so there is a mandate worth 2 lakh rupees, right? So this is machinery product. This must be some hardware wholesaler or retailer. So these are the type of use cases which people come to. 82 mandates, so very strong retention and very strong sort of recurring usage is there in the product. And yeah, I hope this gives you a better idea of what RocketPay is typically used for.
Absolutely. I come from a tech background, so would like to get into one other aspect as well. What technology innovations underpin RocketPay services, and how do they give you a competitive advantage?
Yes. So somebody had also asked a question around like PhonePe, Paytm, Razorpay, and what's their take on this and where we are at, right? So I'd like to answer both those questions. So the underlying technology that we are currently using is A, Nash, and B, UPI AutoPay. These are the two payment instruments that we offer to merchants, and currently it's limited to this. How we are different from other people is that I would argue that we are on our way to build the highest success rate in the market around these instruments. So just for context, I'd like to let people know that UPI AutoPay, if you ask, let's say, people who are using UPI AutoPay, such as Kuku FM or like other companies who use this instrument for collection of their subscription fee, they experience a success rate which ranges between like 40% to 50%. That is the market standard, right? We are already at 65%, and I'd just like to say that a year ago when we had started, our success rate was 35%. So a lot of sort of delta has already been done there, and this is even before we have integrated with banks, right? So one thing that I'd like to mention is that Yes Bank has already onboarded RocketPay as one of the pilot companies for their UPI AutoPay products. So we'll be one of the first 3 or 4 companies in the country to sort of get their hands on that stack. That is one thing. Second thing is that what is unique about us is that since we have processed already some 70,000, 1 lakh transactions, we are understanding, we are gaining more and more insights in terms of what results into failure and what results into success. Right. So for example, things such as that if there is a person who has a middle name, so let's say my name was Ishan Kumar Sharma, and if there is Kumar in between, my mandate is likely to fail because NPCI system does not recognize middle names. So from that level of sort of depth in terms of like the payment instrument to what are the high level things, like at what time should you present the transaction? Should you present it at 6 in the morning, or should you present it at 2 in the afternoon? So that level of optimization, that is something that we have been doing, and we'll continue to sort of do that. And we are confident that we'll take this success rate, which is currently at 65%, to almost 80%. Right. So these are the things we are doing. We have already started building our so within mandates, there are two things which happen. One is registration of the mandate, and then second is presentation of the installment. So this entire presentation system is something. So when we had started out, we were just an API wrapper over RazorPay's recurring subscriptions product, right? So we just wanted to test out the product. But what we have done is that in the last year, we have taken the entire presentation schedule onto our hands. So we are now only using RazorPay just as an interface to speak with banks. And very soon we'll just start directly speaking with banks as well. So that presentation schedule, what is the logic of that presentation? Which presentation should happen at what time? What are the things that we can do on our end to mitigate failures? So those are some of the internal learnings that we have had and we have already implemented. If you look at a real-time payment sort of thing, there are very few sort of error states which come into that, right? So as per UPI, like NPCI codes only, I think there are some 15 or 16 states of error for a real-time UPI transaction. In case of a UPI autopay transaction, there are 99 error codes which can come. Out of those 99 error codes, we have already started mapping out how to handle each case of failure. So, for example, somebody had asked what happens when the payment fails. So there are 2-3 things which happen. So A, if there is not sufficient money, then definitely the payment will fail. Second, the reason why payments fail is because of technical failure or our incapability or ecosystem's incapability. So in case of balance insufficient, what we are doing is that we are helping the merchant screen the person that they are giving credit to. And Rocket Score is a feature which is along those lines. In case of technical failures, we are improving our systems and we are building our own internal infra in order to solve that. Right. So that is how we are sort of solving these two things.
Just to Sudeep, add to what Ishan mentioned. So this entire payments instrument or this entire segment that we are trying to build a deferred payments payment gateway for the merchant. So this entire game will be played on success rate at the end of the day, whether anybody comes to the market. Now the problem of collection is so huge enough. So let's take an example. Tomorrow Paytm comes into the picture, launches the same product for the merchant. Their success rate is say like 60%. Whereas RocketPay success rate is say like 80%. RocketPay is charging you 2%, wherein Paytm said that mera product free hai. Now people are going to stick with RocketPay and will be happy to pay me 2%. The reason being the problem of collection is so huge enough कि मेरा पैसा timely आ जाना is more relief to me than giving out 2% or 3%, whatever that monetization that you're charging. That is number one. So this entire game will be played on how much money that you can recover for your merchants and how successfully can you do that. So success rate is going to be the long-term moat for the company. In terms of our strategy also, so what we have been doing is we have been releasing products that supports the use case of extending on credit. So Rocket Score was one of the retention features that we have built for the merchant to assess their counterparty. Second product that we had also launched, it's called Rocket Keys. So we see a lot of people coming from the mobile and white goods as a segment. Now, typically what happens is, so typically all the lenders inside the country, what they do is when they extend out or lease out any phone, so they install a MDM service onto the counterparty's phone. And in case of non-repayment, they can just lock the device. Now, currently at RocketPay, we have released a similar feature wherein there is a security layer that we have built. In case the payment does not come, you can lock the device, or there is a consequence to non-repayment as well. So for us, how we are looking at things is we are going to support and keep building features that supports the use case of credit. And the long-term moat is going to be the success rate on which this entire company will be built on.
So very interesting to hear the optimizations in the context that that you're addressing, because even from my experience, there are 3 things that are important for payments for any payments company. Number one is conversion rates or success rates. Number two is the speed at which you're paying out the funds or claims that you're authorized by the customers. And number three is how you deal with fraud while protecting the business. I think
Yes.
very interesting to hear how you're solving this in the context of collection.
So just one thing. So one thing we are particularly proud of is that we have done settlement worth almost 8.5 crore rupees, and we have received chargeback less than 4 lakh 5 lakh rupees, right, which we have lost. And in this, like the 2-3 lakh chargeback we had lost within the first 2-3 months of launch only. So we have also a proprietary and like internal risk management system we have built out for deferred payments. So that is something that our company is, like, I would say, very, very good with from very early on.
The last month, just to give you one anecdotal number to this, last month the chargeback number was 3,500 rupees.
And the last month, the settlement were more than 1.5 CR. So very, very low chargeback, like on our transactions.
So what we do typically is, so there are patterns and identifiers that we have started building. So typically, if we see transaction 4,999, 9,999, so there are multiple patterns that we have identified wherein our support team flags that transaction, calls the counterparty in terms of trying to assess whether the transaction was done by him or what was the nature of the transaction. Once the customer approves that transaction, we then go ahead and register that mandate. On the second layer, what we do is in terms of if we have flagged certain of the transactions, so now we ask merchants before we settle that money to furnish in terms of the invoice or the nature of transaction that was done before we release that money. So all those things have been kept into under the radar since a very early, I think, in the system. And so that's how we are managing the risk portion as of today.
Sure. So can you? I think we'll come to one last question. What are RocketPay's short-term and long-term goals, and what impact do you hope it will have on India's payments and credit system landscape?
So currently, the short-term goals, I'll just talk about the short-term goals first. So we are looking at three things in the near 2 to 3 quarters from here on. We are trying to establish a ARPU of 2,500 rupees per merchant per month with the three of the product offerings that we have launched in the market. So that is the one of the short-term goals that we are targeting. Second goal that we are targeting is, so currently, like I mentioned, we have started acquiring distributors of our products. So per distributor, we are trying to establish 200 merchants from per distributor network is what the thesis lies, and is something that we like to prove that out. कि एक distributor मैं acquire कर रहा हूँ, उसके through मैं I am acquiring 200 merchants from that network is the second goal that we have kept. Third short-term goal that we have kept is the current burn of the company hovers around 30-35 lakh rupees. So we are trying to reduce that burn and get it to zero. So increasing our revenue. So we are targeting $1.5 to $2 million ARR in another 2 to 3 quarters from here on. So this is the three short-term goals that we have. Fourth, like Ishan was mentioning, so we have started writing this entire deferred stack in-house. So we have started working with banks. So now once this stack is built out, like I think somebody mentioned that can we use or integrate it with our accounting softwares. So once that stack is built out, all those things will be possible. So if we want to roll out APIs or we want to roll out plugins, or even for that matter, if you want to license this entire stack to say like somebody like Bajaj Finserv or PNGs of the world, so all those things will be also possible. So that is the fourth goal that we have. So that is the short-term goal that we have been kept for ourselves. The long-term goal or the vision that we have for the company is we want to create a digital Bajaj Finserv. So by that, I mean, one thing we are very cognizant about is if you talk about in a very idealistic manner, so the entire country wants Bajaj Finserv. Why is the reason is कि I am getting that money at T+1. Okay, I don't have the headache of collection. Somebody is going to collect that money, and I'm getting business also out of it. So that is where that is the exact solution the merchant wants, if you ask us. But again, matlab, we have taken a step wherein we are acquiring merchants. We are trying to understand the nature of merchants, the nature of transaction, on top of which lending is going to be introduced. So the long-term vision is to build up a digital Bajaj Finserv, wherein we are settling all this transaction at T+1, and we are helping them collect. We are into the business of collection and collect the money that we are extending out in the market. Now,
So
yeah,
essentially payments and embedded finance at point of sale. So somebody had asked, like, isn't this because, like, if credit cards, let's say everybody had credit cards, then wouldn't RocketPay sort of go away or something? So I would say that we will be the company which will take that volume away, right? Because we are now becoming present at places where there is no third party lender available, whereas there is no option of let's say third party finance, right? So we are acquiring those merchants and we are sitting at point of sale. Currently, when the merchants are creating mandates on their customers, they are telling them that, look, RocketPay is giving you this credit and you better pay them back, right? So he's also like positioning us in that way, and the customers are also accepting of that sort of a transaction. So embedded finance with payments is where so a credit point of sale solution is what we wish to become. So yeah.
just to answer, somebody mentioned how is it different from simple. So we are not into the business of underwriting any risk as of today. We are just a payments tool that helps merchant collect their outstanding receivables. So we are not into the business of lending and do not wish to get inside the business of lending in another 3 to 4 quarters from here on. The short-term goals, like I mentioned, we want to establish we want to establish a ARPU of 2,500 rupees per month per merchant is what we are looking at with 3 of the product offerings that we have. Simple, I think, is a buy now pay.
It's a
Uh,
BNPL solution focused
Correct.
towards customers, and we are a payment collection software focused towards merchants. So I would say that would be the biggest difference. Like our TG is very different. Like,
Correct. So we are not into the business of underwriting any risk on our own books on all the transaction that we are facilitating onto the system. So EMI kind of a nature of transaction is one set of transaction where that we are seeing. We are also seeing B2B transaction as well that is happening. So people are extending out goods and services on credit and trying to collect that money on a future date is something that is also happening. So pretty much horizontal in nature, wherever the goods and services has been rendered today and the money has to be collected on a future date, you can go ahead and use RocketPay.
and another thing that I'd like to add is that there is a lot of innovation which is yet to be done. So I'll take one use case of a marble seller who uses RocketPay right now, and he requested us for something called an event-based mandates. So in case of like businesses where there are non-recurring transaction and goods have to be sent over long distance, so his thing was he operates out of Rajasthan and his buyer is in Madhya Pradesh. Now, he doesn't want to send his truck from Rajasthan till he receives the money, and the guy in Madhya Pradesh doesn't want to send the money till he has seen the truck. Right. So in such cases, he was saying, instead of creating a date-based mandate, can you create an event-based mandate wherein once my truck guy lands there, so I create the mandate before sending the truck, the other person has accepted it, and then once the truck reaches, he just gives an OTP to my driver, and that acts as a trigger for payment deduction. So such sort of yes. So it will be used as kind of an escrow. So those sort of use cases are also starting to emerge.
Sure. Those are some interesting use cases and the way forward. I think the Misfits community has also shared a lot of questions. We'll try to answer some of them. We'll start with Deepak Thomas had asked about 300 to 400 billion dollars. Can you elaborate on the credit gap sources? How much of that is unorganized retail, etc.?
So just to give you 350 to 400 billion dollar का जो number है, we'll share that number with you. So मतलब this report has been done by the Indian government only, where they have mentioned that there is a 350 400 credit gap in terms of the kind of money that is required to fulfill the need of Indian MSME. So we'll share that report across with you all. In terms of the second question was how much of informal, uh, how much of
So how much of that is unorganized retail?
Rishav, I think it would be best if we can just show them that slide of that art deck, right, where we talk about categories.
एक
While he's opening that, we can move to the next question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, Vineet had asked about if you're only enabling automated direct debit collections, what if there is no money?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What if there is no money in the customer's bank account, and how do you monetize that feature? And I think even Mohit asked a related question: is there a interest associated with these transactions?
So I think Ishan had already mentioned that there is we see interest being involved in certain of the transaction, not all the transaction that happens on the platform. So in terms of, like I mentioned, that mobile and consumer durable as a category, we see 10 to 15% surcharge on the MRP or the selling price of the product that they are selling, and clearly those are the interest that they are earning while extending out credit. Now, to answer the first question, in terms of how much of it is unorganized. So this is kind of a breakup that we have done in terms of kind of a bottoms up view how the market looks like. So if you see mobile में 4 lakh लोग हैं, consumer durable में almost 6 lakh people are there. There are almost 5 lakh money lenders, unorganized informal money lenders that are there in the market. Almost 6 lakhs furniture shops, almost 1 lakh automobile shops, almost 3 lakhs cement and construction as a category. Jewelers are almost 15,000, 1.5 lakhs. Wholesaler and traders over here are almost 50 lakhs, and services as a use case is almost 20 million. So what we have done is we have volume of sales per year, that is the in-store credit that they extend out. So this number that we have put in over here has come from the data that we have seen on the system. So almost on a monthly basis that we see is people have been transacting 50 to 60,000 rupees. So that number is something that we have put in over here and tried to extrapolate that what is the average self-financing that a merchant is doing in a year. And cumulatively, the market sizing that has come around is almost $400 billion of self-financing or the credit that has been extended out in the market. Second way, this is the bottom top approach that we have taken to arrive at this number. The second number to justify this is, like Ishan had mentioned, that almost 800 billion, almost $890 billion of check was processed in the year 21-22. Now, check by nature is used for deferred payments. So now almost if you take half the amount of that as well, ठीक है, that suffice कि वो भी 400 से 500 बिलियन डॉलर के अराउंड ही आ रहा था. So one way, this is
That
the
is there, and then third would be like the sort of like public numbers reported by Khata Book as well, and I have seen those numbers as well. Ki over there, around 15 to 20 billion worth of credit were recorded on that app by around 5 to 10 million merchants. So those would be some numbers that you can sort of work with. As for the unorganized size of market in India, so 70% of total consumer sales which happen in India are taken via the unorganized sort of supply chain, right? So organized supply chain would be your CNF, then distributor, super distributor, distributor, retailer, and then consumer. In the unorganized part, you would have like your wholesaler, the wholesale market, and then retailers going to the wholesale market, taking things and then selling. So around total consumer sales which happen in India, 70% of that is taken by the unorganized side, and this is something which has been reported by both Bain and Red Seer as well, which is where the use case of informal credit exists.
All right. So Srujan asked about the scalability aspect, and the fact that this could be very difficult to scale. Essentially, cost of acquisition of customer will be very high. And your views on this. I think a related question from Sanjay was, if Khata Book may also we expected to get into this, and will it be much easier for them to scale given their merchant base?
Correct. So we'll try to answer this one by one. So in terms of scalability, see, one of the learnings that we have had in our respective career is we don't want to acquire, say, like 10 or 20 million kind of a user base. We want to acquire meaningful user base. Why we say that is at Khata Book we had 10 million monthly transacting user base, and to monetize that user base horizontally, we had a really tough time. When we look at companies like Bajaj Finserv, I'm telling you from this investor report, they had last year, they had 99,000 merchant network through which they were doing a revenue of $3 billion. When you look at companies like India Mart, the monetized user base is 165K, 1.5 lakh user base through which they rake in almost 800 crore rupees. So the thesis is very simple, that have a high quality merchant with high quality ARPU. So you don't need to go after to acquire a very large chunk of the market. A meaningful business can be made just using a very high quality merchant and a very high quality product offering through which you can establish a very high quality ARPU. So in terms of scalability, acquiring users, we are not looking to acquire every users around the corner. Our thought process is somebody who extends out 2.5 lakh rupee credit in the market on a monthly basis, or has to collect 56 money from 40-50 people on a monthly basis. For them, the solution will make sense. For him to extend me 2,500 rupee every month will make sense. So that is our thought process in terms of how we want to acquire users and the kind of business that we are getting into. Second question was in terms of scalability also. So once the APIs and the stack is completed, we will be acquiring users on the enterprise side as well, via plugins and via APIs as well. Second is, if Khata Book had to be come out with a similar feature, would this be easy for them? I think Ishan would be able to answer this.
Yeah. I'll answer that. So, okay. So, early on, I had mentioned how, like with credit, there are two use cases. One is that of convenience, and the second is of affordability. So, in Khata Book, in the 10 million merchants that they have acquired, 70-80% of their user base is the convenience credit wala user base, right? Which is where the Kirana shop is just, waiving off the daily payments and collecting once at the end of the month. What we are going for is the affordability use case and the B2B use case. So I wouldn't say that there is a very large overlap that of user base which happens. So for example, I would place RTG much closer with the likes of Tally, BizAnalyst, Vyapar than with Khata Book. So that is one thing, that we are going after slightly larger merchants and not the long tail of small merchants, because it's very hard to monetize over there and those guys don't pay money for anything. So that is sort of one difference. And the second thing is that, see, what we are building is not a SaaS tool, right? It's a payments tool, and there is a lot of technical know-how or a DNA which a company needs to have in order to pull off a payments business. Khata Book and Vyapar and the likes are fundamentally SaaS tools. So building, let's say, a payments. So, for example, the best that such companies tend to do is they integrate with a payment gateway, and that's it. So, wherein in our case, we are building the entire stack. We also understand the user needs and user experience and expectations. So, I would say ours is a much stronger proposition. The third thing is that if you compare us against the likes of PhonePe, Paytm, and sort of large payment merchants who have acquired merchants, so places where they have been able to disrupt the market and take a very large pie of the market has been in use cases where discovery was the issue, right? So think of things such as like flight booking, ticket booking, or insurance purchase, where as a user, I already know what I want, how much I want it for. I just need a platform to go and purchase it. So in such cases, players with massive distribution have taken over the market and taken a lot of volume. But in use cases where there is large user engagement required, there is deeper need of like product customization. These don't tend to fare well. So think of Paytm Money versus Zerodha. Paytm Money was only able to capture 1.5% of the market, wherein Zerodha, Grow, these guys have gone well over 15% of the market share. So with deferred payments, our single transaction cycle is that of 4 months, 5 months, right? So the user needs to understand the product and needs to be very deeply engaged with the product. And that is not something which can happen unless they completely choose to pivot or, release a new product, in which case they would again be starting at the same point where we are right now. So that is where I think, and against the likes of, let's say, Razorpay, Cash Free and all, these guys are going after enterprises, right? So they are not really going after the same user base that we are going after. So that TG differentiation is there. So yeah.
Just to give you a very anecdotal story over here. So when Khata Book was had less than 1 million monthly transacting user base, so they got an acquisition offer from Paytm. So which Khata Book denied. Now Paytm had the distribution power, Paytm had the money, Paytm had everything that Khata Book couldn't have. Now Paytm launched and PhonePe launched the खाता feature. So now दोनों पिट गई थी, दोनों का नहीं चला था खाता feature. OK Credit and Khata Book was able to acquire and retain merchant with the strategy that they have opted for. Now like Ishan was mentioning, wherever there is a larger user journey or longer user engagement, people tend to stick with a customized solution. So that is one of the learnings also that we have had in terms of our product understanding, how people or merchants are using or adopting to the product as well.
And I'd just like to add one more sort of story. When this was a experience around fundraise, so we were speaking with Mr. Sohail Samir. He's the CEO of BharatPay. He got convinced of the product within like half an hour of conversation, because what he had observed is that when at BharatPay, similar use case or a problem statement had come from BharatPay merchants as well. Right. And then when BharatPay had considered building this in-house, they eventually realized that the effort required to build this and the patience required to build this will be too much. So they passed on building it within BharatPay. But then he was very happy to see that there is a different company which is coming in and solving this. So it's a fairly complex sort of payments piece. And I would say that a company which is dedicated to building it is the company which is most likely to win in the long run.
I think we are at the top of the hour. There are a lot of other questions. Maybe we can take those offline. Vishal, is there some way to ensure that all the questions can be answered?
Absolutely, Sudeep. What we can do is we can note down these questions and we'll share it with Ishan and Rishav, and those guys can answer those questions. We can share it back with the people who have asked those questions. But yeah,
great.
Definitely.
Sure. Go ahead, Sudeep. I was just saying, any last question that you wanted to just pick up for these guys?
No, I think there are a lot of interesting questions. Maybe we should take that offline. But thank you so much, Rishav and Ishan. I think very inspiring to hear your journeys and the key insights based on which you've started RocketPay, and the fact that you're solving a key problem in the collection of outstanding receivables, and that eventually is going to and that's already attracting this category of merchants who want to extend credit, and eventually you're looking at how that data layer can help in being leveraged to build other solutions to solve those problems, and some key insights around payments and how you are addressing that in the context of receivables, and how you're optimizing the overall journey, as well as success rates, and preventing frauds, and all of that in this context. Technology has always been a great way to level playing field, and RocketPay I see is trying to democratize access to payments, lending technology to empower SMBs, local retailers. It's very interesting to see this. Vishal, over to you for anything else.
Thanks, Sudeep. Thanks a lot. It was pretty engaging, pretty fun listening to both Rishav and Ishan. At least I really liked it. I really enjoyed the session. And thanks a lot, Rishav and Ishan.
Thanks, Vishal. Thanks,
wonderful listening to
you. We also had a really good time this morning. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sudeep. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
I will now close.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.